Welcome to the Timeless Tales Library, where stories flow like gentle streams toward the quiet pools of sleep. I'm Oliver, your evening storyteller, and tonight I'll be sharing a soothing tale to ease your mind and guide you gently towards sleep. The Timeless Tales Library is made possible by listeners like you. If you've found comfort here, please subscribe and help us continue creating these peaceful stories. As you settle in, comment below and let me know where you are in the world tonight, and share a place you dream of, a story taking you to perhaps the spice markets of Marrakesh, a lighthouse on the Maine coast, the rice terraces of Bali, or a cozy bookshop in Edinburgh. Your ideas keep our little library glowing bright. This story is about Cinderella discovering the magic of Christmas Eve in her quiet cottage, where fallen stars become ornaments and winter dreams take gentle flight. Now, take a slow, quiet breath and let the day's events become as transparent as glass. You are entering the crystal atrium, a hall made of polished crystals and mirrors within the Timeless Tales Library. This is a place of reflection, where every story is a clear, shimmering facet of a beautiful, peaceful truth. Light filters through the crystalline walls, painting the room in soft, calming colors. Feel your body become as still and clear as a calm pool of water. Sink deeper into the secure foundation of your bed. The crystal atrium is a sanctuary where you can reflect on the quiet peace within yourself. Your body is a vessel for peace, and your mind is an empty canvas ready for the gentle stories of the atrium. Let your inner calm become a brilliant light that fills your entire being. Cinderella and the Christmas Starlight, a Christmas sleep story. In a cottage where ivy climbed the stone walls like gentle green fingers, and where frost painted delicate patterns on diamond-paned windows, Cinderella sat by her hearth on the most peaceful of Christmas Eves. The fire crackled softly, sending warm amber light dancing across the wooden beams overhead, and outside, snow fell in whispered silence, each flake a tiny blessing drifting down from the velvet sky. Cinderella had learned to cherish these quiet moments. Gone were the days of endless chores and bitter words echoing through cold manor halls. Now, in her own small sanctuary, she lived surrounded by the gentle magic that had always dwelt within her heart. Magic that seemed to bloom most beautifully during the Christmas season, when the very air shimmered with hope and wonder. She pulled her favorite woolen shawl closer around her shoulders, the one dyed the soft blue of winter twilight, and gazed out through her window at the snow-laden garden. The bare branches of the old apple tree wore caps of white, and the wooden fence posts had become small snow sculptures, each one unique and perfect in its simplicity. Everything was hushed, as if the world itself was holding its breath in anticipation of Christmas morning. A soft mewing drew her attention to the windowsill, where a small grey cat with white paws sat looking hopefully through the glass. Cinderella had never seen this little creature before, but something about its gentle green eyes and the way it tilted its head reminded her of the kindness she'd always tried to carry in her heart, even during her darkest days. "Oh, you sweet thing," she whispered, rising from her chair and moving to the window. "You must be so cold out there." She unlatched the window, and the cat stepped delicately inside, shaking tiny snowflakes from its fur. It purred immediately, a sound like distant thunder on a summer evening, and began to rub against Cinderella's ankles with grateful affection. "There now," Cinderella murmured, closing the window against the winter air. "You can stay as long as you need to. Everyone deserves warmth on Christmas Eve." She settled back into her chair by the fire, and the cat leaped gracefully onto her lap, curling into a perfect circle of contentment. As Cinderella stroked its soft fur, she found herself thinking about all the Christmases she'd observed from the shadows of her step-family's grand house, watching through keyholes as they decorated their enormous tree, listening from the kitchen as guests laughed and celebrated, always on the outside looking in. But now, in her own small space, she was creating her own Christmas traditions. Earlier that day, she had woven garlands from holly and ivy gathered from her garden, hanging them along the mantelpiece where they released their clean, earthy fragrance into the warm air. She had lit candles in the windows, their golden flames serving as beacons of welcome for any traveler who might pass by on this holy night. The cat purred louder, and Cinderella smiled down at it. "I suppose you're my first Christmas guest," she said softly, "though I have a feeling you might be more than you appear to be." As if in response to her words, the cat lifted its head and gazed directly into her eyes. For just a moment, Cinderella could have sworn she saw starlight reflected in those green depths, not just the light from her candles, but actual starlight, as if the cat carried pieces of the night sky within itself. Outside, the wind began to sing a gentle lullaby, and the snowflakes seemed to dance more gracefully in their descent. Cinderella found herself growing drowsy, lulled by the warmth of the fire, the rhythmic purring of the cat, and the peaceful silence of the snowy night. She was just beginning to nod off when a soft chiming sound drifted through the air, like tiny silver bells ringing far away. "Do you hear that?" she whispered to the cat, who pricked up its ears and looked toward the window. The chiming grew slightly louder, more melodic, and Cinderella realized it seemed to be coming from outside. Curiosity overcoming her sleepiness, she gently moved the cat from her lap and went to peer through the frosty glass. What she saw made her catch her breath in wonder. Falling among the snowflakes were tiny points of light, each one glowing with a soft, opalescent radiance. They drifted down from the star-filled sky like luminous rain, some settling on the snow-covered ground, others catching in the branches of trees, and a few landing softly on her windowsill. "Stars," she breathed. "Falling stars." But these were unlike any falling stars she had ever imagined. Instead of burning out as they fell, they continued to shine with gentle persistence, as if they had chosen to visit the earth rather than streak across the heavens. The chiming sound, she realized, was the music they made as they descended, a crystalline melody that spoke of ancient magic and Christmas miracles. One of the starlights landed directly on her windowsill and sat there glowing like a captured piece of heaven. Without thinking, Cinderella opened the window again and carefully cupped the star in her palms. It was warm and light as a feather, pulsing gently with soft white radiance. The moment the star touched her skin, images began to flow through her mind like a gentle dream. She saw herself as a child, finding joy in small things despite the hardships around her, singing to the birds who visited her windowsill, making friends with the mice who shared her attic room, discovering beauty in dewdrops and flower petals when beauty seemed absent from every other corner of her world. The star pulsed brighter, and she saw more. Moments of kindness she had almost forgotten, times when she had shared her meager meals with stray animals, when she had tended to injured creatures she found in the garden, when she had offered comfort to others who seemed even lonelier than herself. Each act of compassion shone in the star's light like a tiny flame, and Cinderella realized that all of these small kindnesses had been gathering themselves together, waiting for the perfect moment to return to her transformed. "Oh," she whispered, understanding flooding through her like warm honey. "You're not just falling stars, your wishes, hopes, all the love I gave away, coming back to me." The cat meowed softly from behind her, and when Cinderella turned, she saw that several more starlights had somehow found their way inside her cottage. They floated gently through the air like luminous soap bubbles, casting moving patterns of light and shadow on the walls. As she watched in wonder, more stars began to drift through the walls themselves, as if the very stones of her cottage had become permeable to celestial magic. Each star that entered brought with it a whisper of memory, a fragment of all the Christmas seasons that had ever been celebrated with love and hope. She could almost hear the echo of children's laughter, the rustle of wrapping paper, the gentle conversations of families gathered around warm hearths. One particularly radiant star paused in its floating dance to hover near Cinderella's face. As it drew close, she felt a warmth that went deeper than the physical, a warmth that touched the places in her heart that had once been cold with loneliness and neglect. The star pulsed gently, and suddenly she could see within its light the face of her own mother, smiling with the same gentle love Cinderella remembered from her earliest childhood. "My darling girl," came a voice like wind through summer leaves, though whether she heard it with her ears or her heart, she could not say. "Look how beautifully you have grown. Look how your kindness has bloomed like flowers in winter." The star containing her mother's image drifted slowly around the cottage, and where it passed, new details appeared as if painted by light itself. The rough wooden table began to gleam with a patina of age and care, as if generations of loving hands had polished it smooth. The simple earthenware dishes on her shelves took on a subtle iridescence, becoming precious not for their material value but for the memories they would hold of meals shared with grateful hearts. Even her humble collection of books seemed transformed. The worn spines straightened slightly, and golden letters appeared on their covers, titles in languages she had never learned but somehow understood. Songs of the winter heart, tales of kindness returned, the astronomy of hope. When she reached for one of these transformed volumes, it fell open to pages filled not with printed words but with moving illustrations that told stories of their own tales of other lonely souls who had found magic in their solitude, who had discovered that the smallest acts of love could illuminate the darkest corners of the world. The star that held her mother's presents finally settled on the mantelpiece, taking its place among the holly garlands where it continued to shine with maternal warmth. But now other stars were beginning to reveal their own secrets. A cluster of 3 stars that had nestled near her sewing basket began to glow more brightly, and within their combined radiance, Cinderella saw the figures of the mice who had once been her only companions in the attic of her step-family's house. "Cinderella," they squeaked in tiny, harmonious voices. "Dear friend who shared her bread when she had so little, who sang to us when the nights were long and cold, who made us feel seen and valued when the world would have called us mere pests." The mice stars danced around her ankles as they had done in life, but now their dance left trails of golden light that spiraled upward like luminous ribbons. Where these ribbons touched her simple blue dress, the fabric began to shimmer with threads of silver and pearl, transforming her humble clothing into something that rivaled the finest court gowns, not through ostentation, but through the quiet beauty of love made manifest. A larger star, one that glowed with warm amber light, drifted down from where it had been circling near the ceiling beams. As it approached, Cinderella gasped softly, for within its radiance she saw the kindly face of her godmother, not the fairy godmother of legend, but the elderly baker's wife who had lived at the edge of town and had always saved the day-old bread for hungry children. "I watched you grow," the star whispered in the voice Cinderella remembered from long ago visits to the bakery. "I saw how you never lost your sweetness, even when bitterness surrounded you. I saw how you helped others even when you received no help yourself, and I promised your dear mother when she passed into starlight herself that love would find its way back to you when the time was right." This star settled gently on the window sill where the grey cat had first appeared, and Cinderella realized with a start that the cat's green eyes held the same wise, loving expression she remembered from the baker's wife. The cat purred and winked one eye, as if confirming her sudden understanding, and she felt a rush of gratitude so profound it brought tears to her eyes. "You've been watching over me all along," she whispered, and the cat, who was perhaps more than a cat, or had perhaps always been exactly what she needed, padded over to rub against her legs with warm affection. One by one, the stars began to settle in various spots throughout her small home. Some nestled among the holly garlands on the mantelpiece, making them sparkle as if dusted with diamond powder. Others came to rest on the branches of a small pine tree she had brought inside. Earlier nothing grand or elaborate, just a simple tree she had rescued from the forest, one that had been growing crooked and forgotten in the shadow of larger pines. As the stars settled on its branches, the humble little tree began to transform. Each star became a perfect ornament of light, and the tree itself seemed to straighten and fill out, its needles growing lusher and more fragrant. The transformation was gradual and gentle, like watching a flower bloom in slow motion. New branches unfurled with impossible grace, and where there had been bare spots, rich green needles appeared as if painted by an invisible hand. But the magic went deeper than mere decoration. As each star found its place on the tree, it brought with it a gift, not a physical present wrapped in paper and ribbon, but something far more precious. One star carried the gift of peaceful sleep, its light gentle and soporific, promising nights free from troubled dreams. Another held the gift of laughter, ready to bubble up at unexpected moments and fill the cottage with joy. A third star glowed with the gift of inspiration, waiting to whisper creative ideas into Cinderella's ear as she sat by her fireside in the evenings to come. There was a star that held the gift of friendship, not just with magical cats and remembered loved ones, but with the living souls she would encounter in the days ahead. Another carried the gift of healing, ready to mend not just physical hurts but the deeper wounds that time and kindness had not yet fully soothed. One small, particularly bright star held the gift of music, and even now Cinderella could hear the faint melody it sang, a wordless tune that spoke of contentment and hope. As she watched, more specialized gifts revealed themselves. A star near the top of the tree glowed with the gift of understanding, ready to help her comprehend the deeper meanings behind life's small moments. Another held the gift of patience, its light steady and unwavering, a reminder that the most beautiful things often grew slowly and quietly. A cluster of smaller stars carried between them the gift of wonder, ensuring that she would never lose her ability to see magic in the ordinary world. The tree continued to fill out and grow more beautiful as the stars settled into their chosen places. Soon, Cinderella's cottage was illuminated by the most wondrous Christmas tree that had ever grown, not because it was large or expensive, but because it had been decorated by magic born from love and kindness, and because each ornament of light carried within it a blessing for the days to come. More stars continued to drift inside through the walls and windows, and Cinderella watched in gentle amazement as they transformed her simple cottage into a sanctuary of soft light. They settled along the window frames like garlands of captured moonbeams, their radiance making the frost patterns on the glass look like intricate lacework. They gathered in small clusters on her dining table, creating centerpieces that glowed like earthbound constellations, each one unique in its arrangement and beauty. Some stars chose unexpected resting places. One settled on the handle of her wooden spoon, blessing all the meals she would prepare with love and nourishment. Another perched on the rim of her favorite teacup, promising that every cup of tea she drank would carry with it a moment of perfect peace. A particularly playful star wedged itself into the spine of her most beloved book, ensuring that every time she opened it, she would discover something new and wonderful in its familiar pages. They even perched on the edges of her bookshelves, making the worn spines of her beloved volumes shimmer with mysterious beauty. Each book seemed to respond to its starlight companion. Her collection of fairy tales began to glow with a warm golden light that spoke of happy endings, while her books of poetry shimmered with silver radiance that promised new verses would come to her in dreams. Even her practical volumes, the cookbook with its food-stained pages, the almanac she consulted for planting times, took on a subtle luminescence that suggested magic could be found in the most everyday activities. The walls themselves seemed to absorb some of the starlight, and Cinderella noticed that the simple whitewash now held hints of pearl and rose and palest gold, as if the cottage had been painted with pigments made from dawn and sunset and moonbeams. The wooden beams overhead gained a warm, honey-colored glow, and the stone hearth seemed to radiate not just the heat of the fire, but a deeper warmth that spoke of eternal comfort and safety. In one corner of the cottage, near her spinning wheel, a group of stars had arranged themselves in a complex pattern that resembled a constellation she had never seen before. As she approached to examine it more closely, she realized the stars were not randomly placed, but were forming letters in a script of pure light. Slowly, she made out the words they spelled. Every thread you spin will be woven with love. Every garment you make will carry blessings to its wearer. Another constellation of stars had formed near her kitchen window, and their arrangement spelled out, "Every meal prepared in this kitchen will nourish not just the body, but the soul. Every cup of kindness offered here will multiply and return to you sevenfold." By her bedside, where a simple wooden cross hung on the wall, stars had gathered to form words of even deeper meaning. "You are cherished beyond measure. Your gentle heart has made the world more beautiful. Rest now in the knowledge that you are loved by forces seen and unseen, by powers earthly and divine." The cat, meanwhile, seemed completely unsurprised by these magical happenings. It had settled itself in front of the fireplace and was watching the proceedings with the satisfied air of someone whose plan was unfolding exactly as expected. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Cinderella asked, kneeling down to scratch behind the cat's ears. The cat purred and rubbed against her hand, and for just a moment its grey fur seemed to shimmer with the same opalescent light as the fallen stars. Then it was simply a cat again, though its green eyes held depths of wisdom that spoke of older magic than Cinderella could fathom. As the last of the stars settled into their chosen places, a profound peace descended over the cottage. The chiming melody faded to a barely audible whisper, and the only sounds were the gentle crackling of the fire and the soft susurrus of snow against the windows. The light from the stars was not bright or overwhelming, but warm and comforting, like being embraced by moonlight made tangible. Cinderella moved slowly through her transformed home, touching nothing but marveling at everything. Every surface seemed to glow with gentle radiance, and the air itself felt different, thicker, somehow, as if it were filled with invisible blessings. She had always believed in magic, had felt it moving in the world around her even during her most difficult days, but never had she experienced anything quite like this. She paused beside her Christmas tree, reaching out to touch one of the star ornaments. It was solid beneath her fingertips, real and warm, but light as a whisper. As she held it, she felt a deep contentment settling in her chest, not the wild joy of sudden excitement, but the quiet, abiding happiness of finally being exactly where she belonged. "Thank you," she whispered to the cottage, to the stars, to whatever benevolent force had orchestrated this gentle miracle. The fire in the hearth burned lower, but the starlight was sufficient to keep the cottage bright and welcoming. Cinderella found herself yawning, the magical events of the evening having filled her with a dreamlike lassitude. She settled back into her chair and the grey cat immediately returned to her lap, purring contentedly. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but the wind had died down to the merest breath. Everything was still and perfect, as if the world had paused to appreciate the quiet magic that had transformed one small cottage on Christmas Eve. Through her windows, Cinderella could see that other stars still drifted down from the sky, but they seemed to be seeking other homes now, other hearts that needed their gentle light. As she sat surrounded by the soft glow of her starlit cottage, Cinderella reflected on the strange and wonderful journey that had brought her to this moment. All the years of hardship, all the nights she had fallen asleep to the sound of harsh words and harder hearts, all the mornings she had awakened to endless chores and little kindness, all of it had led her here, to this place where she could finally rest in the knowledge that love and goodness did return to those who gave them freely. The cat stretched and resettled itself, tiny paws kneading gently against her lap. Its purring had taken on a rhythmic quality that was deeply soothing, almost hypnotic. Cinderella's eyelids grew heavy, and she found herself drifting in the space between waking and sleeping, where dreams and reality mingled like starlight and shadow. In this drowsy state, she thought she could hear voices, not the harsh tones of her step-family, but gentle voices singing somewhere far away. Christmas carols, perhaps, or lullabies sung by the stars themselves. The melody was wordless, but infinitely comforting, a song that spoke of peace and safety and the promise of good dreams. One of the stars from her Christmas tree seemed to drift free of its branch and float toward her, glowing more softly as it approached. It settled gently on the arm of her chair, and from this closer vantage point, Cinderella could see that it wasn't simply a point of light, but contained within it tiny, swirling galaxies of color, pale gold and silver, soft blue and gentle green, all moving in slow, mesmerizing patterns. Sleep, the star seemed to whisper, though it had no voice. Rest now, dear heart. You are safe, you are loved, you are exactly where you need to be. Cinderella's head began to nod, and she felt herself sinking deeper into the comfort of her chair. The cat's purring grew softer, more distant, and the starlight dimmed to the barest glow. Through the windows, she could see that the snowfall was slowing, each flake now taking its time to drift earthward, as if even the weather wanted to preserve the perfect stillness of the night. Her last conscious thought was one of profound gratitude, not just for the magical transformation of her cottage, but for all the small moments that had led her to this place of peace. Every act of kindness she had performed, every creature she had helped, every smile she had given despite her own sorrow, all of it had been gathered up by some invisible hand and returned to her multiplied, transformed into something more beautiful than she could have imagined. The stars continued to glow softly throughout the cottage as Cinderella slipped into sleep, their light steady and reassuring. The grey cat settled more deeply into her lap, and its purring became a barely audible rumble, like distant thunder promising gentle rain. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, and the world lay pristine and perfect under a blanket of white. The stars in the sky seemed to pulse in rhythm with the starlights in the cottage, as if earth and heaven were breathing together in perfect harmony. And in her dreams, Cinderella danced not in a grand ballroom with a prince, but in her own small cottage, surrounded by gentle light and filled with the deep, abiding joy of a heart that had found its home. The grey cat danced with her, sometimes a cat and sometimes something more mysterious, its green eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 kindnesses returned. They danced to the music of falling snow and crackling fires, of purring cats and whispering winds, and of Christmas Eve magic and the quiet contentment that comes to those who have learned that the greatest riches are found not in gold or jewels, but in moments of perfect peace and the knowledge that one is exactly where one belongs. Hours passed in this peaceful tableau, the cottage wrapped in its cocoon of gentle light and perfect silence. Occasionally, a log in the fireplace would shift and settle, sending up a brief shower of golden sparks that danced briefly in the air before fading. The stars seemed to respond to these small disturbances by pulsing slightly brighter for a moment, as if they were conversing with the fire in some ancient language of light and warmth. The grey cat's breathing had synchronized with Cinderella's, both of them deep in the restorative sleep that comes only on the most magical of nights. In her dreams, Cinderella wandered through landscapes of impossible beauty gardens where roses bloomed in colors that had no names, meadows where the grass itself seemed to be woven from moonbeams, forests where every tree was hung with natural ornaments of ice and starlight. In one particularly vivid dream, she found herself walking along a path made of crystallized snow that chimed softly beneath her feet. On either side of the path grew trees unlike any she had ever seen. Their branches were silver, their leaves were made of thin sheets of pearl, and their fruit glowed like tiny lanterns in shades of gold and rose and deep purple. As she walked, she became aware that she was not alone. Other figures moved through this dreamscape, shadowy at first, then becoming clearer as they approached. She recognized them gradually, all the animals she had ever helped, all the creatures who had found comfort in her presence during her years of servitude. Here was the robin she had nursed back to health after it flew into a window. There was the hedgehog she had rescued from the rain, carrying it gently to shelter in her apron. A family of mice who had shared her meager meals scurried along the dream path beside her, their tiny forms now glowing with the same opalescent light as the fallen stars. "Thank you," they seemed to whisper as they passed, their voices like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Thank you for seeing us, for caring, for sharing your heart when you had so little else to give." Cinderella felt tears of joy on her cheeks in the dream, and when she touched them, they transformed into tiny diamonds that fell to the crystal path and immediately sprouted into flowers of impossible delicacy. Each flower sang a single, pure note, and together they created a harmony that seemed to encompass all the love and gratitude in the world. Cinderella's dream shifted, and she found herself in her childhood attic, now glowing with light. Books bound in leather, moving paintings, and tapestries telling stories of kindness covered every surface. In the center, a small Christmas tree stood, its ornaments not stars but memories. Each one captured a moment of happiness she had created, teaching a bird to fly, singing lullabies to ease her loneliness, and finding a four-leaf clover. Gazing at the tree, she understood that happiness was not given or taken away, but grew from within, nurtured by small acts of love and kindness. The dream began to fade, but not before a final vision. She saw herself not as a victim, but as a keeper of light. Every person she had comforted and every moment of beauty she had chosen to see were threads in a tapestry of grace surrounding her like starlight. As dawn broke, pale rays of Christmas morning touched the star-decorated tree in her cottage. Cinderella stirred, hovering between dream and waking, still feeling the magic. When her eyes opened, she saw that the wonder had not been a dream at all. The cottage still glowed, the tree still sparkled, and the grey cat still rested in her lap. "Good morning, little star-bringer," she whispered to the cat, stroking its fur. "Thank you for bringing wonder into my world." The cat purred, and Cinderella's heart swelled with joy. Outside, the snow-covered world sparkled, and distant church bells rang. But inside, surrounded by the gentle light of stars that had made her cottage their home, she felt a peace deeper than any celebration could provide. This was her Christmas miracle, the quiet recognition that she was exactly where she belonged, surrounded by beauty born from her own capacity for love. She rose to make breakfast, humming a melody that seemed to come from her own contented heart. The cat followed, and she realized she was no longer alone. She had a companion, a keeper of mysteries who was content to stay. Together, they would create new memories to hang on the tree of their shared contentment. Cinderella felt a deep gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. Every hardship had taught her compassion. Every act of kindness had planted seeds of joy. The stars would always be there, permanent reminders that love given freely always finds its way back, transformed into something even more beautiful. Her cottage had become a sanctuary for all the magic that blooms when hearts remain open despite hardship. And so began Cinderella's first Christmas morning, warm with the knowledge that she was beloved, blessed, and finally completely home.